In this video, I'm going to record a new macro, but before I do that, you'll notice that I have opened a new workbook. And the reason why I've done this is that you can create a macro workbook specifically to store your macros in. Then when you need them, all you have to do is have that particular workbook open, and it's available to any other workbook that you're working on. So to record the macro, I'm going to start out by going to the View tab and then to the macro command. And I want to record the macro with absolute references. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that Use Relative References is not selected, and it's not because it doesn't have an outline. So I'm good to go. I'm going to click on Record Macro. And the first thing I need to do is fill out the information in the Record Macro dialog box. And the first thing is, of course, to give the macro a name. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the name. And you need to remember when you're naming your macros that the name has to begin with a letter and it cannot have any spaces. Then I'm going to assign a shortcut key. And just a word of caution about the shortcut keys. As you know, there's already a number of shortcut keys to perform routine tasks in Excel and other Office programs. Copy, paste, print, save. So if you don't want to override those existing keyboard shortcuts, you can add a shift and the letter combination as the keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to do Shift Q for this one, and macro shortcuts always begin with the Control key. I want to store this particular macro in this workbook, so that's okay. And then I want to add a little description. And I'm going to click OK. My macro is now recording, and I know that because the stop recording button is showing up down here in the taskbar next to the mode indicator. So I'm going to start out by positioning my insertion pointer, selecting the cell where I want to start typing. So I'm going to go down 4 rows and over 2, so I've selected C5, and I'm going to make this cell bold, and then I'm going to type in QTR1 for quarter 1 and Control Enter to leave that cell selected. Then I'm going to use the fill handle to fill the series for the rest of the quarters up through quarter 4. And once I've done that, I'm done with my macro, so I can come down here and click on the Stop Recording button. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and actually clear all in cells C5 through F5. Click back on cell A1, and I'm going to test my macro, and as you recall, the keyboard shortcut is Control-Shift-Q. And there we go. It worked. Now I'm not going to keep this particular macro. This was just a practice run to demonstrate recording a macro with absolute references. So I'm going to go back to the View tab, And I'm going to click on the macro button, and there's the insert quarters macro, and we can take a look at it quickly in the Visual Basic editor. And then you can see here that C5 has been selected and all of the other steps that we took to do this macro. I'm going to go ahead and close the Visual Basic editor, and then I'm going to click on the macro button, and I'm going to go ahead and delete that macro. In the next video, we'll look at using Developer to record a macro and insert a form control.